Today, we're going to talk about a very important subject that people don't even think about it when we're doing a real estate transaction, and is that hidden power that a good notary has and the influence on a successful closing of a real estate transaction.
To be honest, I feel that that is the last key of the process of buying or selling your property.
It's absolutely.
Yes.
It's the one that can make it actually really fail, and it's the last resource that you have to make sure that you're buying something that's good, or that you're properly selling the property. And so many people don't even think about the importance of a good notary.
And I think that they don't even know. So what exactly
Yes.
the role does a notary play in a real estate transaction in Quebec?
So the notary is that person that is going to make sure that the seller has the capacity to sell in every sense, and that the buyer is getting what we call a clean title.
Yes.
That there's no problems with boundaries, with the property, that it's pretty much the one that guarantees that it's a clean and fair transaction for both parties. And the notary, it's important to know that typically in residential and even in commercial, the buyer is the person that chooses and pays for the notary, for the preparation of the deed of sale, because sellers also pay. That does not mean that the notary works for the buyer.
Okay.
The notary is impartial, and
see.
and the notary has to protect both parties.
And talking about choosing a notary, why is it so important to choose a good notary?
Look, there's a lot of people that focus on, it's my dad's notary, it's my family's notary, it's the cheapest, oh, we have a rebate.
Or the recommended by the bank?
Or
Yes.
that's
That's one that I wanted to emphasize as well,
Yeah.
because not a lot of people know that the bank recommends as well, but is it good?
Look, I'm not gonna say that the notaries that the banks recommend are not good, but but as with any professional that you are going to hire for an important purchase, please verify it. If the notary that you're going to choose is your family notary, but it's a family notary, it's like, Maria, would you go to a heart specialist if you have a knee pain?
No.
And
That
they're
doesn't
both
make any
doctors,
sense.
huh?
Yeah.
They're both doctors. You really need to choose a notary that's specialized in real estate. Because the difference, there's things that a notary that doesn't practice real estate on a day-to-day basis can miss. So not because it's a notary means that it's good for your transaction. So that's very important to take into account.
And what can go wrong if the notary isn't like thorough or doesn't properly review the documents?
There's so many things that can go wrong. I personally had, like, for example, I was selling a condo, and the notary that the buyers of the condo chose, disaster. So much a disaster that he calculated the interest on the mortgage that I had to repay wrong. So when he charged me, when he deducted from the proceeds of the sale the amount of the mortgage and send the check to the bank, well, surprise, surprise, 1 month after, I get a very beautiful big bill from the bank saying that I was late in some payments. When I told them, but it's the notary, well, the notary calculated it. Oh, no. There's
But
things.
how do you know that? I mean, how you as a client, when you have no knowledge of the work of a notary, can you verify or be sure that what they're doing is a good job?
Look, normally you should trust them.
Yes.
But if your last mortgage statement is very far from what the notary is telling you in the adjustments that you have to repay as a mortgage, ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions. There's a lot of and there's mistakes in what notaries do so much. I had a client buying a property about a year and a half ago, and the notary that he chose, I had recommended. Well, this notary had catched that when the seller of that property had bought the property from somebody else, that person that sold to him had a partner, and that partner, since it was a family residence, had to authorize the sale, and it was never authorized.
Oh my God.
Thank God those sellers had passed away, so nobody could come and claim it.
Okay.
But if they had been alive, they could have come to claim that transaction, and there would be a chain of transactions that would have just be invalid.
That's crazy.
There's so many things that can go wrong when a notary doesn't know what they're doing. So that's why it's very important. And these things are things that a real estate broker doesn't have to verify, and that they're not easy to catch. We do verify a lot of things on the land registry. But to be honest, I'm not going to go open the deed of sale of the last 5 sales. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that whoever says on the listing it's the seller, it's actually the seller. And I'm going to verify in the previous deed of sale if they had a partner or things like that to see if they're signing. But I'm not going to go back 5 sales to see. That is something that a notary will do. A notary will help you verify the certificate of location. Yes. Because us brokers, we know and we study, but the person, the expert to revise it is the notary. So if a notary doesn't understand a lot of bylaws and things, there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
And talking about having a bad experience with notaries, can a client confirm or find reassurance with their real estate agent to make sure that what they're doing is proper?
Yes.
Or is there like a role of confirmation between an agent and a notary?
Well, look, the yes, but in the sense, like, for example, the adjustment sheet. What is the adjustment sheet? When you're going to buy or you're going to sell a property, there's some adjustments that are done for municipal taxes, school taxes, condo fees. If there's, for example, a lease propane tank, things like that. A real estate broker can help you verify that and make sure. And actually, not long ago, 3 months ago, we're sitting at a notary's office, and she passes the adjustment sheet, and I see the adjustments, and my clients are, yeah, we understand, we're going to sign. I'm like, wait. Hey, the adjustment sheet says, I don't know, let's say September 10th, when we had agreed to give some additional days to the seller to stay at the property, but he had to pay for those adjustments. Oh. Well, there were 10 days of difference that the notary had forgotten to calculate, and it was money that my buyers would have had to pay. And that's just because crazy. I checked the adjustment sheet, they saved, it was about $500 or $600. So
that's crazy.
So those things, yes, a real estate broker. There's other things. There's a lot of now discussions about legal guarantee. And us, we've been trained real estate brokers by we're doing a lot of trainings on legal guarantee. And now you can actually buy a property without legal warranty, but without renouncing to previous legal warranties that have been given. For example.
What does that mean? Yes.
For example, your sellers are selling you without legal guarantee. Because they're, for example, older people. So that's totally normal. But they bought that house 5 years ago with legal warranty.
Okay.
So you can renounce to this 5 years of non-legal guarantee, but you can still get the legal guarantee that was given to those sellers before. And there's a lot of notaries that, if they're not on the real estate practice, do not understand those clauses. And us as brokers, we've had to show them judgments that prove that what I'm telling, that you can renounce to legal guarantee for a certain period and not to another period. And there's been things where we have to show the notaries, hey, this is a judgment, this can be done. So yes, but that's also why it's important for a real estate broker to have at least I don't know, 3 to 4 notaries that you're used to working with, that you know that are experts in the field.
That's so important.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And at what stage of buying or selling process should the notary get involved?
Ideally, once the promise to purchase is accepted.
Okay.
A lot of clients wait until the last minute when all conditions are fulfilled and they're preparing. But ideally, once the promise to purchase has been accepted, and can there be any additional fees? There might be a couple of $100 here and there, but it's worth it.
Interesting. And can the buyer or seller use the same notary at the same time? And what are the advantages or disadvantages to do so?
Typically in residential transactions, both parties use the same notary, unless, for example, it's a complicated succession or something like that. But typically, because like I said, a notary is an impartial person. In commercial, when the transactions are very complex or are very big, the buyer uses one notary, the seller uses another notary, and then the two notaries speak.
Oh, I didn't know that. That
But
they can
in-
use different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, in residential, you could.
Yes.
There's one acting notary, which is the one that prepares the deed of sale, but you can get all of the documents. Let's say you absolutely do not like the notary, or you had a bad experience in the past with the notary that the buyers chose. You can get your own notary involved. It's extra cost, it's extra money, it's not worth it unless it's to make you feel, but like I said,
Well,
a
yeah.
notary must be impartial.
Well, usually, as you said, the buyer is the one paying the notary.
The buyer in residential, unless it's something that it's differently agreed, but it's typically it's the buyer that pays for the notary. Yeah.
I see. And what signs should a client look for to know if a notary is truly competent for a real estate matter?
Number one, Google the person, and on the La Chambre de Notaire, you can see if the notary is specialized in real estate. That's number one. Number two, you can check if see how responsive the notary is. Like normally when I tell my clients, I give them 3 and I tell them write to the notary and see how it goes right away. If somebody takes 3-4 days to respond, that's what you're going to expect.
Exactly.
So responsiveness. I believe that the notaries that collaborate with real estate brokers and mortgage brokers are very important, because at the end we're all on the same boat.
Exactly.
We're all on the same boat, and there are some notaries that literally don't like real estate brokers, and they don't even advise us. We normally in residential, you go with your client to the notary and you're there, and some notaries don't even care and don't even tell us anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's some, because they just don't like real estate brokers. And so that's why it's important. I believe
I'm sorry, but does that would affect the experience of a buyer or seller, depending on how the selective a notary can be?
Yes, actually, I referred a notary to a client the other day, and the notary wasn't available, so they said her partner, notary, would do it.
Okay.
The experience of my client.
For real? Oh my
And
goodness.
like I have some notaries in a list that I would never. She was condescending.
You have a blacklist. Oh, wow.
Oh my God, she was condescending. One of my clients was English speaker.
Yes.
She spoke English. She would change to French. At the day, that was the one that also made a mistake on the adjustments.
Yes.
The day of the signing, she was mean. She had forgotten to read a final amendment. I was like, oh, and the poor clients, she added stress to the transaction on the
of
last
course.
minute, and a good notary will try to alleviate the stress.
Exactly. And can you give us some 3 red flags out of the bat that a client could note, and when they're facing a notary, they can kind of like point out?
Well, I'm gonna say the first one is it doesn't practice real estate.
Okay.
It practices family, or I don't know, mediación familiar or things like that. Another thing, like I just said now, if you write to the broker and it takes that person 3 or 4 days to get back to you. If the person, I like any other professional, if the notary is not accommodating in some sense, if they don't speak a plain language, for example, if when they explain you things, they're using always technical terms, the notary needs to explain you. For example, because when you're gonna buy a property, you're gonna have 2 appointments with the notary. You're gonna have one to sign the deed of mortgage and one to sign the deed of sale. It's very important that when you're signing your mortgage, that the notary explains you in simple terms what you're getting into. And when you sign the deed of sale, there's some notaries like in a second, like, okay, let's sign it. No. I'm not saying they need to read word by word the deed of sale, but go through the most important things and explain and make sure that both sellers and buyers understand their responsibilities. And like in anything, you can Google them and see what are the reviews they have. Like in anything, you can Google them. Yeah.
Something that you said that really stood up with me is that a real estate agent, a courtier hypothécaire, and a notary, they should work together.
Yes.
Until the end. So because that depends the experience of the client, if the client is buying or selling. But do you think that at some point they should be in separate ways?
Well, the notary definitely is a impartial real estate professional. The real estate broker is not impartial for both parties. I defend the interest of my client, which is either the buyer or the seller. So I can't, if there's anything that needs to be solved, I'm gonna take the side of my client.
Of course.
Because that's what I'm hired for, and that's my responsibility. The notary, it has to remain impartial. Of course, it doesn't mean that a real estate broker can just not see something in detriment of another party. No, I mean, in all transparency, but when it's the interest, you defend the interest of your client. So at a certain point, for example, I'm going to give you another example. I have a client, we're going to go visit a condo. And the real estate broker that is representing the seller, because I'm representing the buyer, put a clause that said that the certificate of location is from the beginning of 2015, so that if a new certificate of location is required, that it's going to be paid by the buyer. That shouldn't be that way, because a certificate of location from 2015, January 2015, is already expired because it has a 10-year, it's valid for 10 years. And it is the responsibility of the seller to provide a new one. So when I call her, she's like, oh, well, I have a notary that can do it without, and I'm like, no. No. And then I speak to one of the notaries that I normally recommend, and I'm like, can this be possible? She's like, no. So
that's amazing. But
that's where a real estate broker and a notary should not be like in bed together, because that is not correct.
It's so true, because I was thinking that the people or the notary that recommends my agent should be a good one.
Yes.
But does that mean that they're working together?
No. Well, I mean, the notaries that I recommend, if I make a mistake, they're gonna tell me. They're not. I recommend them because I know they're impartial, because they work good, because I know they catch things, and because I know they're responsive, because I know, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to recommend them because they're going to do crooked things. No.
Okay. I think that's how it should be done. And for legal documents, must the notary prepare or verify before signing the deeds of sale, and what documents could they be?
The notary revises a lot of things. First of all, it revises the previous deed of sales, like we were saying. Not only the ID, that's another important thing, an ID, like 2 pieces of ID of each of the parties. It revises the certificate of location, and it makes sure that there's no anomalies, and if there's things that need to be corrected, well, the notary is going to, for example, take care of getting title insurance for the buyer. They are going to verify everything in the case of condos with the co-ownership. So not, and again, here, I'm giving examples that don't necessarily have to be with me, but because normally when you buy in a co-ownership, you need to ask for all the co-ownership documents. But if there's a broker or a buyer that has no broker that forgot to ask for things, that notary is going to verify, are there special assessments coming? Is there anything that has been voted and that the buyer oversaw? They are going to verify that the seller does not owe any taxes to the municipality. They are going to verify that they don't owe any taxes to the school board, that they don't owe any condo fees. If there are any legal mortgage, for example, there's somebody that did a renovation on your property and you did not pay that person. That person can put a lien on your property.
Oh, wow.
So the notary is going to verify if there's any liens, and if there's any liens, the notary from the proceeds of the sale is going to go pay, and it's going to radiate that legal mortgage so that the buyer gets what we call a clean title.
I see.
So there's a lot of work involved.
And talking about legal matter, how can a good notary protect the buyer from future legal problems?
For example, if, like I'm saying, in a co-ownership, if the buyer oversaw that there's a special assessment coming and the notary catches it at the last minute, well, the buyers would be able to walk away from the transaction.
Oh, wow.
Or the seller would have to pay for that special assessment. Same thing. Sometimes, you know what? There was a transaction a long time ago where I was representing the buyers and the sellers didn't have an up-to-date certificate of location. And they insisted that we close with only title insurance. Wow. The notary said, no, let's wait. And I said, no, let's wait. I'd rather not. We get the new certificate of location. There is a Bell and a Hydro-Quebec servitude, which means a right of passage, in the middle of a pool.
Oh, my God.
So that would have meant that if ever Hydro-Quebec or Bell wanted the buyer to move the pool, they would have to, they couldn't even move the pool because it was an in-ground pool.
Oh my God.
So that transaction at the end ended up failing because of that. Course. But those are the types of mistakes or things, and especially if you're not dealing with a real estate broker, you really need a good notary because they're going to verify, they're going to do all that due diligence that a broker didn't do. It's not going to save you because if you as a buyer did not put the clauses necessary to, to protect yourself for certain things, doesn't mean that the notary can cancel the transaction, but at least can open you the eyes on the mistake you're doing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what practical advice would you give to someone choosing a notary for the first time? Number
1, get references of good notaries. Number two, don't wait until the last minute, or don't make it the cheaper your criteria, because a difference in price on a notary, worst case scenario, can be $1,000.
Yes.
But it's the best $1,000 that you can invest. Let's not say spend, but invest. The other thing is, if you have questions, if there's something you don't understand, ask questions. Ask all the questions. You're buying, it's an important investment. Ask the questions. And and like I was saying, don't focus only on what's the price, or this is the notary that did, I don't know, my parents got married with him or whatever.
And I have one last question. What stage of the process during the notary can you change a notary if you're not feeling that it's a good one?
You can change it until the last minute, but that would mean that you're going to have to pay double the notary fees, and that is going to delay the transaction. But in all honesty, if you're 1 week before closing and you see that your notary is doing a crappy job, better spend an extra $1,000 or $1,500, or probably it's going to be more, but and change than just to go with the flow and keep the notary.
Because I believe that some people would stay in a very bad procedure just for not doing or canceling or doing what they have to do to choose another notary.
It also, the thing is, it's that the implications on the delay, because it's not only about the money, but if, for example, 1 week before closing you change notaries, it's going to take at least 3 weeks for the other notary to make the signing, because the funds from the bank has to be transferred to their account. They have to verify it. So if your seller doesn't have those 3 weeks, or you as a buyer don't have those 3 weeks, well, that's why it's something that you need to choose wisely. Because your real estate broker, you can change it at any time.
True.
Once the transaction is going, it's very difficult, but the notary, the timeline to change the notary is very, very short. It's very, very short.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Catalina, for this amazing episode.
Your face is like, oh my God, I learned something.
Every time I come here, I gain new knowledge.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you, Maria. Thank you, Rasco, for production.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everyone. We'll be here next time on December 12th. And if you have any questions, DM me any subjects that you would like us to discuss here. Thank you.
Thank you.